Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eyes Wide Open. This week, we have the Best of My Reality TV Guests episode to close out, or I guess maybe start up the new year here. So this year's been a crazy year. I've had plenty of reality cast members on the show. My ex, Danielle, Alyssa Barmonde, Stephanie Davison, several other as well. And today, you're going to get to hear some of those clips that I deemed were the best of the year. And why is this important now as we start off the new year of 2024? Because there's a lot of great things happening in the reality TV space, from our groundswell of support and cast members coming forward to tell their stories about exploitation and support. The UCAN Foundation, which was founded with me and Jeremy Hartwell and Dr. Isabelle Morley earlier this year, in which you will hear some clips from our episode as well, where we talked about the foundation. So a lot's happened over 2023. I'm getting ready to lock it down and move forward and force this change in 2024. So I hope that you like, share, subscribe. If you are new to the show, maybe this will make you want to go back and listen to older episodes. Or if you've been here all along, I hope that you get some enjoyment out of this best of as we head into the new year. And we want to do that with our eyes wide open. Our guest today is Olivia Frazer. She's a content creator, model, and she was a cast member from season 9 of Married at First Sight in Australia. She was edited into a villain character. It impacted her job, her relationship, her family, her home. We have a very authentic and genuine conversation about what it feels like going through this and how it has impacted her and the stress that it's put on her mental health. So before listening, just be aware that this is a deep episode. I have read a bit about you and Jackson, and it sounds like you two really did fall in love. And, you know, I always say, I'm like, hey, I think these experiments can work. I really do. It's the other stuff of how they're produced and the damage it does to people and how it ruins people's lives that I'm like, that's where, you know, you got to draw the line. So you two really did fall in love. And you said, I think I saw it was like for 10 months you guys were together before the show started airing. Is that accurate?
So after the show started airing, so we met in September 2021, and then we stayed together until August 2022.
And that's when the show came out.
Oh, the show came out in the January. So we had a good 6 months together, and then the show, and then it was pretty horrible. Like, we probably had a good 6 months and then a horrible, 4?
And you had said, and I can relate to this, you had said in a couple interviews that you think you guys might have still been together if the show never aired. What happened, or what are you comfortable sharing about that?
So, I'm happy to go for it. So, we really connected on the show. We were very stable, very unbreakable, unshakable on the show. The show did air our relationship to look really toxic, but that was all heavily edited, which we can get into later. But yeah, and they definitely were always angling to show that I liked Jackson more than he liked me, which is obviously a really horrible dynamic to live with later on. It absolutely wasn't the case. We were, and I think anybody on set would tell you that we were very in love from very early on. And then I just sort of noticed before the show started airing, so when the adverts for it started going, and I had tremendous anxiety during filming. During filming was when I started having suicidal ideations. So when the advert started airing, there was just we had very different reactions to it, in that I was anxious and not really prepared to enjoy it at all, whereas he was really excited about it, and he was like, oh my God, my face is on TV, this is amazing. And I'm like, okay, but this is gonna be horrible
Both
for us.
fair ways to feel, but like you guys,
Yeah,
yeah, don't
absolutely,
compliment.
absolutely. And I think I've been really bitter for a while with him in that he was really excited about the show and about being famous and about everybody seeing it and loving him and things like that. Whereas my experience was always going to be very, very different. We were always just going to have very different experiences with the show airing. We had very different experiences with the show filming. So I think he was really excited to be famous and enjoy that. And I couldn't do that. I don't know. So we very much fell in love. And then the show airing was a huge strain on our relationship.
Was it primarily just that you both had like a different experience watching it back and seeing what happened in the show versus what happened in reality? Or were there like things in that edit that like you guys started questioning each other?
So it was very much the different experiences. And I think he wanted to go out and enjoy it and be famous and go clubbing. And I'm pretty sure as soon as he realized that, or I think as soon as he got a taste for the fame and stuff, I'm pretty sure he just wanted to go out and be single. I don't know if he would agree with that, but I could tell, when you start feeling like a nuisance in the relationship or feeling like you're holding them back from what they really want to do. And I think before the show aired, I think he very much wanted to be in a relationship with me. But then when he got a taste for a different lifestyle, I think he very much wanted to go. And proof is in the pudding. He ended up making out with a 20-year-old in a seedy bar, while I was at home with his mum. So that was fun to wake up to that morning.
How did you find out, if you don't mind me asking?
Social media. So he came home. He got brought home he was very, very drunk. So he got brought home by the police at 3:00 in the morning. We were down visiting his mum in another state. So I'd gone home with her earlier in the night. And then he got brought home at 3:00 in the morning by police. And then we had sex and then woke up in the morning and I had a shower and he was having breakfast with his mum and I just checked my phone and there was first thing on social media was my husband kissing a girl in a bar the night before.
Oh my God. Wow.
So, and you know what? I was so hated. People were congratulating him. There was very, very little sympathy. It was mostly the general consensus was good job, Jackson, she deserves it. Sucked in, Olivia. And this is my whole thing was I'm having death threats. At this point, I'm having death threats daily. It's taking everything in me to not follow through with all of these suicidal ideations, and it's horrible. And there's this whole this huge thing, and my everything that I could say to myself and everything that my mom and my brother, the only thing that we could say is big payout, big tax. And that meeting Jackson and how in love and how nice of a relationship it was worth it. And to have that thrown back in my face.
Who's telling you that?
Oh, my mom and my brother. It was just okay, no, at least I got Jackson out of this experience. At least I had Jackson out of this experience, and then he cheated on me and ruined it all.
Today I have Corrine Hatch on as a guest. She was on America's Next Top Model season 8 back in 2007. And to the surprise of probably absolutely no one, the treatment of the cast of that show, specifically that season we'll get into today, was completely exploited, mistreated. Their mental health was used against them and weaponized. It's damaging, and people are getting severely hurt mentally and physically. Ms. Hatch is truly a strong survivor and has been through so much. And I hope that watching today's episode, hearing Ms. Hatch's story, will help you look at reality TV, the production, and what you see on screen with your eyes wide open. you're not getting followed around in your everyday life. You don't even really get to pick what you do or what you talk about or what you say. And then they can
Absolutely.
tell and craft these stories that people watch for some reason and can't see that this isn't actually real. And then they come at people and they hurt people, and they're cruel and they're mean online, or they're mean in person, or
And
whatever that is.
the producers like lead that dialogue basically when they make these edits, because they, I mean, even in the ways they ask questions in those weekly things that you have to do, they're like, don't you feel like so and so's being, and then they create like everybody's talking about her this way, so everybody jumps on board that train.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like this spiral of just bullying, and like they're literally being the instigators of that, and just crushing people psychologically. And there are so many instances where people, after these shows end up, for me, I drank a little too heavily in New York. I was in my 20s. Who cares? People do that. It was the modeling scene, and
People have committed suicide.
yeah, people have committed suicide. People like my friend JL ended up with a meth addiction that she had to overcome, and then she died of breast cancer. And people suffer in like real ways, that their lives are destroyed because they thought that they were doing something that was going to be positive. Because they went on something because of the way that it appears. And I mean, even the contracts that we signed, right? I sent mine to my lawyer. From my accident lawyer, he was a family friend. His dad and my grandfather used to golf. That's why he handled my accident case. He was like, Brad, because he's like a dad to me, can you look this over? He's like, don't worry about it. I know there's like a lot of stuff in here, but nobody's really out to like do these things. It's like when you go now to like a trampoline park and you sign this waiver, like if I break my neck, if they're just liability clauses. They mean nothing. It's because they don't want to get sued for like some accident on set or something. But then it actually happens and you're like, no, they were gonna do this, and they wanted you to know that you were not gonna do anything about it.
Yeah. And then they threaten you with it. I mean, there's literally lines in the contract for Love is Blind saying we can defame you, we can misrepresent you, you have no recourse, you can't go against the edit. If you go against the edit, it's $1 million. There's so much in there, and it's like
$5 million.
Jeez. And
who's got $5 million?
No one.
Definitely not any reality TV show person.
Yeah, no one I know. What was the most alarming thing in the contract for you?
It doesn't seem alarming when you first look at it. Like, it's literally, you read it over and you're like, this is just a boilerplate, like, clause. The things that now bother me, if I relook at it, is the way that it's structured. Like, you're actually going to like the guise and the fakeness of it, of like, you will be competing in a modeling competition, that you will go through actual experiences of model. Like, we didn't get any modeling training. That's all a bunch of bull. When I worked afterward, it is nothing like that. People are kind, they're caring. I did a shoot in the French Alps, and I remember like every 5 minutes they were wrapping me up in a blanket, and they called my agency afterward, and they're like, she was so nice and so like apologetic for literally the weather conditions. And it's because I was so abused by Top Model to think that like I would be put in these situations. And I don't know if it's because Tyra, unfortunately, maybe experienced that because she was a Black model at a time that didn't exist. And maybe she was abused as well. And maybe that was her reality. But that is not the reality of what actually happens on set ever. And like the things like they make you do the nude shoot, right? And you get kicked off if you don't do it. Literally, when you sign with your agency, you sign a piece of paper that's like, I'm willing to do this or I'm not willing to do this. Right. And they have no problem with it. You just decline a job. Nobody cares. It's not like this is going to be your career if you don't do this. Like, your neck is on the line. Like, there are times they're literally saying like, oh, don't take that job because we don't want you doing like a tampon commercial because you're supposed to be editorial.
Right. It's not real. That's all it is not real.
And it's not. And everyone believes it because they have Tyra's face on it and she's like a reputable person. And then nobody in middle America at like 20 years old has any idea what the industry is like. And they're just like, oh, well, that could be a way.
This is Alyssa Barmonde from season 10 of Married at First Sight Australia. After talking to her, we thought about having a conversation here on the podcast and really get to know her as a person and then how she was manipulated on the show. So we're going to get into all of that behind the scenes today and let Alyssa tell her story and tell her truth.
It's unbelievable what goes on behind the scenes. And that is what is so shocking that viewers don't know. After my Q&A, there were so many people that messaged me that were like, holy shit, I had this different perception of you when I watched Maps, but I've just watched your Q&A and I am floored. And they're like, what's so beautiful is I'm getting so many messages now of people apologizing to me because they felt some type of way about me watching me. And then now they're actually seeing the real me and they're like, wow, you are completely not that person. I was like, yes, thank you. I know.
That's awesome. Do you about production though? Like, why do you think? I mean, we alluded to this. It's the drama, but like, why does it have to be so dramatic?
Right?
Like over the top, unrealistic, dramatic. Like you don't write like this would be satire in Hollywood.
Yes, it's unreal. There was who was it that did the reel the part that you can just repost it, and she was like really entertaining TV, and it's like really
Dr. Isabelle.
Yes, love her, obsessed with her. That was such a perfect, like, human beings are so dramatic as it is. You don't need to facilitate this drama. You don't need to manipulate the drama. I'm telling you, the way that I lived Married at First Sight, they could have just filmed it of what happened and it would have been just as dramatic without ruining everyone's lives because that was the real story that had happened.
And let it be real. It's going to be more relatable too. And I one of the things I said was, imagine a scenario in Mexico which by the way, for us in Mexico, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. If they had 2 psychologists on set like they claimed, where the hell were they when someone had a panic attack? Second of all, imagine a scenario where it's like you're in this new relationship, your partner just had a panic attack for the first time, right? And then there's a mental health professional. It's like, here's how you guys can navigate this together. Let's build some skills. So you're building positive, habits in your relationship instead of negative, toxic ones. But at the same time, you're showing a lot of people who maybe haven't had access to therapy or maybe have a partner that's struggling or a partner that doesn't know how to deal with it. And like, that's entertaining too, but it's also informative.
Yes, it is the perfect way to highlight mental health and mental health struggles in a relationship and give other people the tools on how to navigate that. Perfect opportunity. But instead, they don't. And that's exactly what happened with Duncan and I on the couch a few times is, I had a massive panic attack, ran off set. It was classed as a tantrum. And he did this whole dramatic, like running after me, but like wasn't actually running after me. And then...
Did they tell him to do that?
I don't know. I do not know. And that's the thing, like now it's just me kind of like, I don't know what was real. Do you know what I mean? Like I have no idea what was real and what wasn't.
When you watch this back, it's like gaslighting.
Yeah.
Like I watched these scenes just the other day because I was filming something and I'm watching them and I'm like, God, I forgot this isn't how this happened. Like and then you're like, oh, did it happen that way? Did I say that? There's one scene in the pods where I'm like, I definitely did not say that to that person. That is a totally different conversation with a totally different person at a totally different time. Because it's so out of context. Yeah,
I journaled a lot on set, which I'm so thankful for. I spoke to my sister and my dad every single day via text, which I'm so thankful for. Because then I go back and I'm like, wait, I swear to God, that didn't happen that way. Like, it's almost like, what's that funny thing? I can't remember what it's called, but it's almost like if you remember like the Berenstein Bears or the Berenstein Bears, and it's like...
the Mandela effect.
Yes, man. It's like, Is this a Mandela effect? Am I remembering something that isn't right? So perfect example of how they can manipulate a storyline is one of my biggest insecurities is, why would this 38-year-old good-looking guy, never been married, doesn't have kids, why would he want to settle down with me as a single mom that has quote-unquote baggage? I do not look at children as baggage. My son has taught me to be resilient, It's taught me unconditional love. It is like the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And so the experts ask him, is it a concern that Alyssa's child is going to be first priority? In real life, he says, yes, it is a concern. That's huge, right? In the episode, he says, no, it's not a concern. I'm like, that is not what happened. Because then everyone's like, oh, he was there for you. He saw the priorities. I'm like, guys, no, that's not how it happened. Look, I will put my hand up and I will be accountable. And I will say, did I do and say things that I am not proud of? Absolutely. I watch back and I'm like, damn, I should have handled it that way. I should have said this way. At reunion, I did apologize to him and the whole cast because I'm like, holy shit, this has turned me into a person that I was not.
I have Stephanie Davison, who you may know from 90 Day Fiance from 2021. Stephanie first reached out to me when we launched the UCAN Foundation to say, I support you. I was sexually assaulted on set. I was having allergic reactions to hundreds of bug bites from the location we were on. And the fact that she and Ryan actually broke their engagement before they picked up filming again after a pause due to COVID. Her story is just the antithesis of how horrible reality TV production is, how unethical it is, how fake it is, and how they will exploit you, mistreat you, misrepresent you, hold you to physical harm, all so that they can get their storyline. Tell me about your fake storyline with Ryan and how everything with Harris, who was his cousin, how that played out in real, or maybe how that played out on the show first, and then how it played out in real life.
When we applied, to be on the show, we were engaged, and then what happened is COVID hit. I mean, like boom, like 3-4 weeks later, COVID hit, and they rely on tourism. So I started supporting the family.
And that's in Belize, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And so they don't get like what people get here, unemployment.
Yeah.
So he had sisters and brothers and his mother, and they had no income. So I was paying rent, I was paying cable, I was paying food, I was feeding the family and keeping a roof over their head. And at first he was appreciative, and then I was letting him know, yes, they're filming me here, and eventually we'll get there. And as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. He then started saying, I want more money. And I'm like, you want more money? He goes, well, yeah, I'd like to have, you can't be here for my birthday. And, I like to have a party, and you usually, throw a nice party for me. I'm like, Ryan, this year is not party time. I'm paying all the bills for you and your family to have a roof over your head. And he goes, if you don't start sending me more money, I'm not doing the show. And I said, guess what? Engagement is off. I said, you will not extort money from me. How dare you, after I'm putting a roof over everybody's head? So I said, we're done. So I called the executive. I did not call the executive producer. I called the field producer, Via. I said, Via, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Ryan and I have broken up. We're not going to be on the show. She goes, oh, yes, you are. I said, excuse me? She goes, Stephanie, we have too much money wrapped up in you. We've been coming to Grand Rapids. We have, 150 hours wrapped up in you. You're doing the show. I said, no, I'm not doing the show. He's extorting me for money. She goes, Stephanie, you're paying all their bills anyway. Just send him what he wants. I said, Via, when I do something out of the goodness of my heart, that's one thing. When extortion's involved and I'm being bribed, no, I'm not sending an effing dime. And I hung up on her.
Why don't they foot that bill if they want you to be engaged so bad?
You know what? And they said, and they had told me that before. They've been taken to court because somewhere, and it doesn't surprise me at all, now that things go on, they're not allowed to pay, that's why they only pay the Americans. They don't pay the people on the other
Right.
side, because then it looks like they're paying to have a TV show. So they've been taken to court before because I guess they got caught paying someone. So they're like, we're not allowed to pay. I'm like, well, that's okay. I don't want to be married to this guy now. Now he's really showing his true colors.
That's so horrible.
Isn't it though? So, when they were supposed to come, I said, don't come. And they ended up showing, and they flew a crew of 15 here to take me anyway. And I said, I told you not to come. And they said, we're not leaving. We were told to come anyway.
What?
Yes.
This is insane. Were they at your house?
They weren't at my house, but they had taken enough. We had been filming at my house, but they had taken enough like green screen. And so they set up, and they had purchased a very large banquet room at a hotel about 20 minutes from my home. And they said, this is where we are. We're not leaving. And I said, good, stay there. And I turned my phone off. But what happens then is when I turn my phone off, it then starts ringing to my medical assistant. So then she started like calling another line of mine, and she said, Stephanie, they're like interfering with our business now because they keep calling and calling and calling, and they're saying, tell Stephanie we aren't leaving town until she gets here. So this went on until like Wednesday night. They started at Monday. It's like 7 a.m. By Wednesday night at 9, I thought, okay, they've had to have left by now, right? They wouldn't be paying this crew because, they pay everybody like contractor. So this is hourly with 15 people. I'm thinking.
Well, and a lot of them are union, so they're going to be paying more for the extra work.
Exactly. So I thought, okay, I can turn my phone. It's 9 o'clock at night, Wednesday. They got the hint. Turn my phone on, Nick. Within 5 minutes, my phone started ringing.
Oh my God.
They're all still there. And they said, as we said, we're not leaving.
Did they threaten you with any like damages or anything? Because I know in the Love is Blind contract, if you leave or pull out or anything without producer's permission, they can charge you a $50,000 fine for damages.
Yeah. No, nothing like that. Because I had asked the executive producer, because this is reality TV. This is supposed to be, a real engagement. And I had said, what would ever happen if we were to break up? And they said, well, then of course the show would be over, And I had asked the executive producer that, because I wanted to know every little detail.
Well, they just lie.
About everything from minute one, they lie. Mm-hmm. So I was bawling, but at this point, I am like catatonic. I'm like, Pam is already telling me at work that they're disrupting, and she's trying to get all this work done, and people are trying to call and schedule and get in, and they're just calling. And so I went down there at 9 at night, just bawling. And, and a couple of the camera crew, just come on. As you had said, this will be great for your business, which I had said. I admitted, because, before they're like, this is going to make you famous. And I'm like, I don't give two shits about being.
They try to sell that as payment. You're going to get a lot of followers. Someone told me you're going to casually make $1 million a year. Now that was never my motivation for doing it. And I am not motivated by money. But it was just this like, we can do whatever we want to you because you're going to get famous.
Right. I know. And I don't know about you, unless you're Bethany Frankel. I don't know anybody making $1 million or even close for being on a reality show.
Today we have a very special guest, Danielle Ruhl, who is from Love is Blind and my ex-wife. For today's episode, we're going to talk everything of our mental health throughout the entire process. We're going to talk about things that happened at each stage that were some production related, some personal related. And in today's episode, we'll take you all the way through our wedding day and through what our wedding day experience was like. I hope this helps you go through life, your eyes wide open. So then you got sick, and long story short, they wouldn't let you, because stomach issues was a COVID symptom, and then they wouldn't let you go to the couples reveal party. Now, that we've talked about before. We were together the whole time. How are you possibly infected? I'm definitely not infected to the point where they didn't even give me a test. I don't think, unless I don't remember. We were tested, for those of you, like, we were tested every day or every other day.
They didn't want to test you just in case, so you could still go.
On top of that, I went to the party for 2 or 3 hours. I come back, and first of all, they didn't do anything that we had agreed to. Like, I had told them, like, put, Nina outside because we liked her and she was a real person, and it would be good for you to have someone if you wanted to talk to someone while you're just sitting there and you literally have no phone, you have no TV, you have no internet, you have nothing. You're just sitting there with your thoughts. And so when I get back, they told me, okay, Danielle's sitting on the end of the bed. Go in there. She's not mic'd. Go in there, have a conversation with her, and make sure you stay close to her. Do you want to explain your time in those couple hours?
Yeah, no, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. I tried escaping at one point, actually. I met a couple friends in the swimming pool. I hung out with them, actually went into their rooms, which was like a big no-no. I jumped out over the pool thing, went to the lobby, and I was like, no, I can't get like my cell phone or any stuff. I don't know what I was thinking, but I was like, I have to get out of this room because I felt so like I knew something was going to happen. So then I go back into the room and I have a panic attack in the closet. Like, I go into the closet because I'm like, I don't know if the rooms are bugs. I don't know if they're filming me. And I hadn't had a panic attack in a while. Like, that wasn't, like.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah. So I was just out of my mind. And then when they came back, they were like yelling my name. I don't remember if they like could find me at first.
No, I had no idea any of this went on until you told me. They didn't tell me.
So I was like, I just had a panic attack. I'm not filming right now. They're like, just sit here, blah, 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 blah. And that's when you came in, and they're just like, they told you to start talking about drama at the party. And that's when I was just like, I don't want to talk about that.
So here's my question that I just thought of yesterday. Well, I have two. One, Kinetic claims that they have rigorous protocols in place, and that's a direct quote, rigorous, to support people pre, during, and post-show. If somebody has a panic attack while filming, wouldn't that be a great time to introduce the mental health professional that they claim they have on set that's there during the show to come in and help you with tools to regulate, help you calm down, give you someone to talk to? Nothing, right? But you did get producers.
Yeah.
My other thought is you couldn't go film the couples party, but you could film in our private room with all the producers, and the camera people and everybody there.
Wait, what? I didn't even think about that.
I didn't either until yesterday. How did they let us film that scene if you couldn't film anything?
The executive producer is the one who came in and said to my face, this close, you can't go to the couples party. Yeah. Our room was filled with like 100 people.
And you tested I just thought of it yesterday. It's crazy. So you couldn't come to the party because you put people at risk, but they can come to your room to tell this different narrative of whatever. And I still, to this day, I don't understand the purpose of that. And I mean, I understand there's nefarious possibilities as to why they did it. I get that, but
I have my conspiracy theory in my head. But.
Yeah. Well, we could do an episode called Love is Blind Conspiracy Theories.
They're always right. Mine are always right. I
swear. Yeah. So then, I had no idea. And as soon as I had figured out what was going on, I was pretty pissed off. I threw the microphone at the producers. I kind of hope it landed in the water. I don't remember. But that was rough. And then you and I like talked through everything, and there was no, like, we had no issue with it.
It was not us
once it calmed
versus each
down.
other. It was us versus
Yeah.
them at that point.
Exactly. But what happened, like, the next day, I think people don't see everything that happens, right? You see little moments. Like, what was the rest of Mexico like for us, I guess, and for you?
That's the thing, is like, you see a snippet in time, right? And you saw me talking about the aftermath of a panic attack. I'm talking the world, not. And then the next day, it's not like that anxiety just goes away. The anxiety was because I didn't want to be there anymore. So the next day, this is like our second or third day ever, like, even seeing each other. And I'm still having to, like, curl up in a ball. And I was kind of like still in that, like, vibrating mode where I kind of, like, he knows what I'm talking about. And he wanted to be there for me so bad. So he would like hold me and I'm like, you don't understand, like, the physical pain that is associated with when I feel like this is so bad. Like, you can't touch me. And it's hard for some, like, when you're in that emotional state with someone that you're engaged to and you love, but you also don't know them long enough to know how to be with them when they're having, like, a panic attack or anxiety to that level where they're experiencing that physical pain. It's like,
well, that would have been another great time to get some support, to be like, here's how you
therapist.
navigate these situations.
Yeah. Someone coming in and it's just like, we were, like, left to our own to try and figure it out. And then the only thing that happened was someone that worked for the show coming in, trying to convince us to stay because they thought he was going to lose his job. And I'm like, I don't feel okay. I felt like I was having a heart attack. Nick, you tried so hard, and I still felt bad because you literally were like, what can I do? And I was like, nothing. But it's not nothing in a sense. And now you know me enough where it's like, when I say nothing, you know that nothing means that there is nothing in the world. Sometimes that can help me when it comes to another person. But in that moment, that must feel like shit, But it's just like those other things that you don't see that are filmed that are traumatizing are also, like, impossible for couples to figure out in the moment, that add extra stress to a relationship or just, like, additional pressure to everything.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And I didn't even know until later that you were still kind of reeling from this panic attack, and it wasn't even, don't let me put words in your mouth, wasn't even the panic attack alone. It was just the stress of, like, realizing, oh my God, I'm engaged to someone after a couple of weeks and we're being filmed and I'm going to go home soon. And it's a lot. And the thing is you are making life altering decisions on this show every day. And they don't just impact you. They impact you. They impact your friends. They impact your family. They impact your job, all this stuff. And you just don't have the real world experience of how to navigate them. You just have the pressure cooker experience of how to navigate
and then just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
Part 2 of the Nick Thompson and Danielle Ruhl conversation. This was a really tough one. And I think this is a little bit tougher now, because while we did have some obvious struggles with production, we're going to talk about what actually went on in our life together, our mental health throughout that entire process, what it was like anticipating the show coming out, some of the things that we experienced and went through in our life, why we did After the Altar, some of the struggles that we faced both together and individually, all the way through our divorce. Hopefully this interview helps shed some light on both the behind the scenes of a reality show, but also the behind the scenes of our marriage in the public light and some of the things that we were experiencing, so that this can help you go through life with your eyes wide open. People don't really understand, and that's okay. And people project. So there's a lot of people out there that I think are, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but like when they're like, oh, you signed up for this, or, oh, why'd you stay? Or, oh, like, I think there's a little bit of them thinking like, I should have had this opportunity. I would have been better at it. I would have survived it better. I would have navigated better. So there's all sorts of weird stuff going on there with that. But like the fact people are like, why didn't you leave? Or why did you film After the Altar? Why did you go to the reunion? And, we went to the reunion, and up until it was a game time call if we were actually going to participate.
Yeah. Remember, like, so we had like two couples therapists. We had Michael and we had Lise, and we were mentally preparing ourselves.
I forgot about
for the
that.
reunion.
We had gone through 4, because finding it's hard. It's hard to find the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the sessions with Michael were like, what, freaking 8 hours.
Yeah.
And we would go and we would practice, like, okay, how are we going to navigate going here, knowing that it's going to be going into a re-triggering environment? And we would talk about it with our other couples therapists that we would meet weekly. And it was just like, we literally spent so much time trying to mentally prepare together for the reunion. So it's not like we just like, oh, please let me go to the reunion. Like we didn't want to go. And I texted like everyone from Netflix and Kinetic saying, I can't do this. And they're like, you know, it'll change your narrative, X, Y, and Z. So we still flew to LA, and the day of the reunion.
And not together, by the way. You don't.
Oh,
you,
yeah,
you can't fly together. Yeah. So we had different cars, different airports, different airlines. So it wasn't like we were able to sit down and have a deep conversation about it.
But it's like even weeks, months, days leading up to it. I was like, I don't think I can do it. I can do it. And I was just like in this battle in my head of trying to figure out whether or not I could mentally handle it. And my aunt had died due to addiction, like right before, like pretty early on. And she was like so excited to watch this experience. And I was just like freaking out in the bathroom. I remember I was like having like a mini panic attack where I just had to like close was it under the bathroom sink or in the bath? I don't know. Like I was somewhere weird where I just had to like be in an enclosed space. And we decided, like, I was like, no, I freaked out on my producer and was like, I can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I will give you all of the questions that we will ask. And so Nick and I went to brunch and we sat there with our questions and we're like, fine, like, we'll do it if this is exactly what happens. And we are leaving if anything goes awry. And so people are like, one, why'd you go to the reunion? We didn't want to. We decided last second because we told them that they had to do it the way that we wanted it because we didn't want to go.
We are contractually bound to do it too. So there is that risk that they're gonna, you know, come.
That's always, in the back of your head. It's like, you have to do this. And then a what is the word? Like 3 to 4 episodes after. So that's in there. Because I actually got a note from my psychiatrist, just in case, saying that I like wasn't, you know, I needed to not participate in this other stuff.
Lise wrote us something too, right? Our couples therapist?
No, my psychiatrist wrote it and Lise looked at it to make sure that it was persuasive enough to let us get out of contract.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha. So our couples therapist like literally read a note from my psychiatrist and was like, I think should be more persuasive. But it's like, we didn't want to go. Like, you just feel like you're so like, you feel like you don't have a decision to or not to. Until now, looking back, it's like, we should have just fucking said no.
Today, we are going to be talking about the real behind the scenes of reality TV with Jeremy Hartwell and Dr. Isabelle Morley, who are the other co-founding members of the UCAN Foundation. Ultimately, what we're going to be doing today is talking through why all of our experiences have led us to start the UCAN Foundation and what we're trying to accomplish. We're in the middle of a moment where more eyes are going to be on this than ever before. And I feel like as a society that's entertained by this stuff, we have an obligation to make sure that people aren't, their lives aren't destroyed.
Yeah, and can we emphasize that people's lives really do get destroyed by this? Like, it's not people you're imagining, people that I probably imagined at first, but like somebody in Texas gets to go on a show and they fly out to California and then they fly them back to Texas and drop them back in their town with no support, no help. They've made no money off of it. They don't get any deals. If they weren't a star, they get no further exposure. And like, that's it. Lives really do get destroyed by it. It's incredibly upsetting.
It is. And people, you know, when you say lives destroyed, there's people who have been misedited to have said something that they didn't actually say, or that's completely out of context, or that was actually a response to something else that was said earlier. And when you're taking these tactics and you're projecting someone out to the world inaccurately, that's devastating. Even if it isn't that bad of a, like, it doesn't make you look that bad, you get gaslit by watching this. And I just literally, there's scenes that I would watch. I'd be like, that didn't happen that way. I know it did. And then I'm like, did it? No, it didn't happen that way. So it's so damaging just emotionally, but it's also damaging when you just throw people out there and have them say and do things that they didn't actually say and do, or at least lack the context. I specifically think of, I can't watch the show anymore. I watched season 1 and 2, obviously, but I heard that there was someone in season 4, I think I saw it on TikTok, and I don't remember who it was, but he got labeled a plagiarist. And they actually gave him, because he's an attorney, they actually gave him the footage that they cut where he is actually proving that he is not plagiarizing that song that he sang. And I think about, like, if you like plagiarism, you're going to make someone a plagiarist. It's just reckless. It's just completely reckless. You ruin an attorney's career by doing that.
Again, I always try to put myself in the position of viewers because, 3 or 4 years ago, I would think the same thing, right? I'm very sympathetic to that position because I never really watched reality TV, but looking from the outside on this, I can understand why people would assume that there's no harm done. These people are fine. They're making a lot of money, right? But I think to anyone listening to this, the concept of your identity being ruined is a really difficult thing to swallow ambiguously. So to make it really concrete, just imagine that if all over social media, all over the news, all over press, on Reddit, every single social media or news forum you can think of, someone was spreading the word that you're a Nazi, right? And by the way, if you try to defend yourself and say you're not a Nazi, you're liable to pay $1 million each time you try to do that. And so the only choice you have is to roll with that narrative that you're a Nazi
and apologize. They can publicly apologize.
And apologize. Yeah. And try to create your life around this new persona of you being a Nazi. And I want to really hammer home the point that is not exaggeration.
It's literal language in the contract.
It's reality. That's actually how it works. And I'm not using Nazi to exaggerate the position or as a hyperbole. That's if someone's cast as a villain, they can be edited as something that doesn't reflect any part of their personality in real life, right? A total Frankenstein monster that does not actually exist, right? But these production companies can put it out there as a real person, say, this is you. And if you try to defend yourself, we're going to sue you for $1 million each time you try to defend yourself. So I think if people watching this are having trouble wrapping their head around this, do a thought experiment, run through this exercise. What if my entire social media, my Facebook, my Instagram, everything, right? And media outlets I didn't even know, all of a sudden were saying I was a Nazi and I couldn't do anything to defend myself, where my only choice was to admit that I am and start apologizing. How would you handle that?
I would break it down even further and everyone can relate to this feeling of imagine when somebody incredibly close to you sees you in a way that you don't see yourself, right? When you're being accused of saying something or doing something in your relationship and all you want to do is defend yourself and explain why you didn't mean it or you didn't try to do harm, right? When you feel disconnected from people that are incredibly important to you, we all have the need to defend and explain and reconnect, right? Even in a one-on-one relationship, let alone when the whole world sees you in a way and you can't, there's no possibility of repair and reconnecting. I mean, that is one of
Yeah. And you have hundreds of strangers giving you death threats for that.
I just had Dr. Kirk Honda on my show from Psychology in Seattle. It's like a tongue twister. And I had him on to talk about what he experienced with online bullying. He did some commentary on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. He was getting death threats. He went on Reddit and was on some sort of hit list. He also had an entire subreddit that was organizing to take away his license to practice, get him fired from his school, and basically ruin his life. And they were organizing and talking about ways that they were going to silence his supporters and opposing viewpoints so that they could just control this narrative that he was a monster from commentating his professional opinion on that trial. And when you think about, and then he sat there and said, well, I didn't have it as bad as you did. I'm like, I don't think anyone was trying to kill me. It's or ruin my life. But, those are the things that are happening to people who go on these shows, and they can edit. And I've had plenty of people that I've been talking to the last few weeks whose lives were ruined. There was another person and she lost her entire business because they just flooded it with bad reviews, all because of an edit. To
hammer home that point, right? It's there's kind of, it's everybody that leaves these shows. Like even someone like myself who didn't have a lot of publicity and didn't get a lot of that social media angst or aspersions cast at me, I still got some of it. And I'll say, like, even at 1% of the level that Nick got, it was still very anxiety inducing and a very difficult thing to handle, even at a small volume. And so it doesn't matter whether you have a large following or not. It creates a massive mental stress, and it could disrupt your entire life. But so for every one person you see who has a massive following, who you're aware of, right? Because when viewers think of reality TV cast members, they obviously only think about the people who are well known, right? The people with massive followings. But for every person that viewers know of, there are probably 100 cast members they don't know of who are worse off financially, worse off mentally, and worse off emotionally than before they were on the show. And again, not exaggeration there. But even the people who are doing really well or seem to be doing really well, it's important to note that they seem to be doing really well. And a lot of them are just hostages to their situation because they can't change their narrative. And maybe they are making some money out of it, but their life is never going to be the same. They can never get their real identity back. And the only way that they can make sense of this financially is to keep spinning in this drama at the behest of the producers and distribution companies that are essentially paying them to promote this platform of a false identity. And that's an incredibly traumatic thing as well. So when you see these seemingly successful reality TV cast members on social media, take a step back and ask the question, am I just seeing a illusion, or are they actually healthy? Are they actually happy? Are they actually successful? And Nick can back this up, but I can tell you from personal experience, knowing some of these people, a lot of them are in extremely bad shape.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.